Welcome to Grace Notes, the weekly community affairs show with Town of Yorktown Supervisor Michael Grace, and I'm Bruce Apar of Chase Media Group. We always start off the show with some upcoming events, and as I look at the community calendar that you can also look at yorktownny.org, every day I'm looking at a Decorate Egg contest. That's every day from March 1 through 19.
Oh, really?
There's a day, I guess, you can go online or your kids can go online and decorate. You have to download the
virtual egg?
Poster, virtual egg. Yeah, right. That's right. Yeah, that's which came first, the virtual or the egg? That's right. And anyhow, so that'll be a lot of fun, and it's all over the calendar. You can't miss it. Decorate Egg contest, which means Easter is right around the corner, and it is, as well as Passover. And other than that, there's really not a lot going on.
Yeah, the Passover was the 26th, is it?
Yeah, the end of the month. Yeah.
We don't have a town board meeting that night. Because of that,
So right, that's the first Seder is, yes, that's right. And then we should also, Supervisor, welcome our guest who's been with us before, Bryan Fumagalli, editor of Yorktown News.
Yes.
Thanks, Bryan. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for coming. And tonight's kind of fun. We did a show last week, which I guess got lost in cyberspace.
Right. If you haven't seen it, there's a good reason
Right.
why you haven't seen it.
And the last show, we were trying to bring everybody up to speed as to what has gone on over the last year. Now it's actually 14 months, I guess.
Yeah.
As time goes flying by, what's still in the hopper, we're still moving forward on, and what we can anticipate, and so to bring kind of everybody up to speed. We did a lot of talking over that hour.
Yeah.
Lost somewhere in the machinery, but I think so tonight will be sort of I guess that ended up being a dress rehearsal.
That's right. It's a good dress rehearsal.
Well, we wanted to get, I haven't, and perhaps I should at some point do the State of the Town kind of address, but I figured tonight what we'll do is, we decided to invite some of the press, and Bryan, thank you for showing up, and trying to go through what actually I feel were the accomplishments of my administration in the last year, and to get everybody caught up to speed as to where we're going. But so I'll start. We've got. I think we've done a lot in the last year under my administration, and one of the most important things, I think, just changing the tone of the town in terms of its relationship both with the business community and with quality of life issues. One of the things that the reason why I decided to run was basically one of the major things that I wanted to accomplish was to change basically the tone.
Right.
To show that Yorktown can be a business-friendly town, and that it's not us against them, and that I think the business community embraces this town in its generosity. Mm-hmm. Most charitable organizations, not-for-profit organizations, depend upon the contributions of a lot of the local businesses, and we're trying to reciprocate and embrace them as well. We're very proud that over the last year we've had basically more than 24 new businesses opening up in the town of Yorktown.
Wow.
And from Temptation Tea House and the winery up in Shrub Oak to Twist, ice cream. We have Love and Spoonfuls. We had Jake's Wayback Burgers, Dynamic Fitness, Salsa Fresca, the Nothing to It, Diego's Deli, Multi Burgers. We had IHOP. Mm-hmm. The winery finally got its CO.
Yep.
So a lot of good things have happened in terms of new businesses opening up. But more importantly, we also have a lot that's looking to come in, and a lot of businesses that are looking to rehabilitate. We changed the parking regulations, and hopefully we'll see an application by the Jefferson Valley Mall to rehabilitate the mall. So we're anxious and anticipating that. We're looking, hopefully, I've had a few meetings with DEC in the hopes of pushing along the Osceola Realty project, which is a 24,000 square foot medical office building complex that would be situated up in Jefferson Valley, next to Osceola Manor. We're hopeful that the Roma building comes in,
Right.
looking to rehabilitate that building, its facade. In conjunction with that application, we will have legislation hopefully very soon, which will allow for, facilitate the financing of green infrastructure in commercial buildings, whereby the commercial building owner can rehabilitate or retrofit their building with energy efficient infrastructure, and basically do it through a line on the tax bill, which will then and finance it through basically almost municipal finance rates.
Has the town done that with their buildings?
No, but the town, we are moving forward. One of the other things that we did do over the last year, in terms of, there's a lot of things that we did that don't necessarily go out beyond this building, but in terms of the operational aspects of the town, one things that we did, there's a couple of things that we did. We reinstituted the Vehicle and Fleet Committee, and we also created a Buildings and Grounds Maintenance Committee. And one of those reasons for that is because a lot of our buildings, our infrastructure is aged, is in need of improvement. As for instance, the roofs, both at the PD, YCC, and Town Hall, are in need of rehabilitation and replacement. We're looking at doing it with some also green technology. We made a visit to a place down in Ardsley, and I can't remember the name of it, but where they use all green building materials. So the building materials are either from recycled products, but some of the other things that they use are energy-saving devices. And one of the things they had down there were what they call solar tubes, which are a type of a skylight. But what they do is it's lined with a high reflective tin, which will if you're a kid and you do a magnifying glass with the sunlight, it just magnifies the sunlight to the point where you can actually don't have to have any light whatsoever. The brightness that comes out of these skylights can actually it's enhanced to the point where you really don't need lighting at all. Matter of fact, the way they're designed, you could actually, if you have moonlight, that would almost be enough to light the room, because it just reflects, the light reflects back and forth off the lining of the tube, and what you have to put in the solar tubes is actually dimmers. You put louvers in there to dim the light, that because it's actually it can be too bright.
Wild,
Yeah.
It's vampire energy.
But we have a flat roof here at the meeting room, and we have a flat roof over the assessor's office, and those two roofs have to be done. We're taking a look at that and maybe installing them. One of the other things that we are continuing to push was is the relocation of the highway garage, the reclamation of that property. We have designated a site where we could put the highway garage that could fit all the equipment. We're looking at green technology in the new highway garage.
That would be Greenwood Street, right? You were going to think about?
And it would include both these solar tubes for lighting and hopefully reclamation of some of the energy that's given off by the digesters at the sewer plant, because it would be up on that property, either to turn that into some power or heat. The technology on that may not be so great, but we're looking at seeing if we can fit some of that technology to reclaim, which is just waste, the energy given off by the digesters to heat the new physical plant. So hopefully we'll do an unveiling of what the plan is for the highway garage property in the town. But that would, the ideas that have been being looked at is basically extending what is Railroad Park, continuing that linear park to where Patriot Park is, connecting them all, and taking a look at a mixed use.
No, that's a long process, though, right? I mean, are there still studies going on at what's actually in the ground at the highway department?
Yeah, we did a phase one, which would not surprisingly said you need to do a phase two, which means borings. But we're pretty optimistic based upon the phase one that the phase two shouldn't show much of a problem. The sites that become problematic are sites where you have had in the past some type of continual discharge. So in a manufacturing process, years ago there was an issue with the dry cleaner up by in the Somers. I think with the, if you're constantly using something within a manufacturing process that's being discharged or used on the site and then leaks, that's where you have problems.
What was the highway department before? I was told, and I don't know if it's true or not, I forget the specifics of what was there, but something that was very, I guess, toxic, you might say. What was, do you know what was there before?
The part of the property to the south of the highway garage where used to be the town dump.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
There you
so
go.
that's more where,
That's what he was talking about.
Yeah, that's more, that's south of the property, that's more where it's actually east of where the bus garage is, Bauman's bus.
Yeah.
So in that area. The highway garage, interestingly enough, is if you go, Patriot Park is built around the old turntable for the railroads.
Right.
So that's actually where they would physically turn the railroad car
around to
as
go
a
back,
turntable to go back the other way. The area where the highway garage was basically really the depot. So that was where the original town really began.
Yes, right.
Was over. That's why you have Depot Deli over there.
Right.
It's named after. So
Yeah, you see, when you look at old maps, I mean, it's fascinating. There was a hotel there, and
right. That was really the center of town,
right.
and there. I suppose it could be a potential issue based upon the way they used to construct railroad beds, because I think they used to use ash waste.
Okay.
Right,
On the railroad beds, but that really is the railroad bed is really the trailway,
right. North County Trailway,
County
yeah.
Saying that concern might not necessarily be on.
the highway property. I think the highway property should, and what is also gives me some optimism as I believe a phase 2 was done on the property across the street, which included the Yorktown Auto Body property, because they were looking to expand that.
Yes, that's right.
And that came back very clean.
Right.
So I don't anticipate many problems. I mean, you may have had transient oil spills, but those are issues which are very remedial at low cost.
And the like, I guess Eric, since he's the supervisor or superintendent now, he's said that that's a good idea. He could see where you might move it to, and he said that would work.
Yeah, it actually centralizes a lot of the equipment, puts a lot of the equipment that's now left to the elements under a roof, because we can, and it would be a Butler building construction, which is fairly inexpensive. I think 100 by 200.
What does that mean? I remember writing about that, but
It's a truss structure. So
Okay.
it's a footing with a arch truss, arch steel truss with a sheathing over it, and it's open space. And we would relocate some of
It
the
sort of
other.
looks like an airplane hangar, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's
That's
like
what
an
it sounds
airplane
like,
hangar
yeah.
shape.
And we would relocate some of the, we would reuse a lot of the equipment that's now in the present highway garage in that garage. So I think that's a very, I'm very committed to pushing that along.
of all the things that you've kind of projects you've pushed and things you want to do, that's the one that I get the most rolling of eyes from people, or like, give me a break, that's never going to happen. For some reason, people just think that there's no way that that's going to happen.
But that doesn't mean they're opposed to it. They just think it's not going to happen.
Yeah, you know what?
Well, some people are opposed to whatever.
Right, anything, everything.
Yeah.
You know what?
Rebel without a cause.
Yeah, I guess.
I'm going to tell you my experience, and I'll segue this right into the. We've got good news. I think exciting developments as far as us getting new sewer connections. That's something that hasn't been done in 20. The last time we had a sewer connection in this town was probably 25, 30 years ago. So the knack to this stuff is really you have to be able to. I mean, if you can present a cogent, reasonable argument, and do it with some, and also build, sort of the political coalitions that you need to get things done. You can do things. The idea that you can, it's really funny. I can understand why a lot of things, why for years and years nothing got done or nothing gets done, is because every time you go to do something, you have, you know, you're going to have some headwind, you know, resistance to it, and you're going to have your naysayers, and if that's what you listen to, or, you know, there's always a downside to everything, and people, it's real easy to identify, oh, this would be the downside to doing something, and just people, you know, well, that means that I got to there's going to make an effort to have to get over that, whatever that hump is, so why bother? Right. Why bother, you know, and from on a political level, it's sort of, why bother, because I'm just, you know, there's a certain amount of enemies I'm going to create every time I go to do something, because somebody's not going to like it.
Right. Yeah.
And the old adage in politics is you add enemies a lot quicker than you keep friends. So you don't necessarily, you know, it's you know, as for instance, one of the things that we announced last night was the fact that we're taking a serious look at the Holland Sporting Club property. And the opportunity that we have is that the Route 202 widening is going through. And again, I'll digress. Well, we're also still, you know, actively pursuing
your
the
vision.
boulevard approach to 202. That's still going on. It hasn't stopped. We had the meeting very early on, I think last February or March. We got good feedback. We're still continuing down.
Is that something that when you speak to Senator Ball that you still bring up to him? Is that?
Yeah, we actually right now we're trying to get a very small coalition instead of having a big coalition. A small coalition to actually go up to the state and try to push that, because what's interesting, if you do the analysis and you do the numbers on it, it makes an infinite amount of sense. But there's an opportunity for the state, because we're looking at possible private investment in that. We don't want to create Central Avenue. We want to create something that we can be, you know, we can be proud of, but also accommodate.
You don't want to create Central
No,
Avenue.
no, we don't. And we will, if we don't do anything, if we're not proactive about it, eventually something's going to happen. It's going to get to the breaking point, and something's going to happen, and then you are going to get something that you don't want. So the idea is to address it, and address it in the manner that we would like to see it happen. And at this point, I think we can do that. And the talk in that regard has been positive. That also combines with doing some MS4 projects in there, some drainage projects on the hill there. So there's a whole bunch of things that are all coming together. So that it is reaching a critical mass, and putting all the pieces together can be done at this point. And it is an opportunity to do it. And it's the same thing. Once you start laying it out as to the vision and what you want to do and how you want to do it and how it can be done, and you see that it's possible, things start to happen. It's the same thing with the sewers. We've had a discussion with both DEP, DEC, and the county. And last night, we announced it. Mike Kaplowitz was here. He was enthusiastically endorsed going ahead and moving ahead in that regard. And this is the kind of, the political coalition that you need, which hasn't existed in the past. But you got new people that are looking and really willing to do things. You got new people at DEC, you got new people at DEP, you got people in the county that are now, going to take a serious look at it. We met with the towns of Somers, city of Peekskill and Cortland, and once you start dialing in actually what we need, and the feasibility of doing it, and what you can get done, and what really is positive, both economically and ecologically, it's absolutely reasonable. We sat with DEP and DEC. We said, look, this is the amount of flow that we're looking at. This is if you don't want it in the watershed, we have possibility of removing it from the watershed. We got a possibility of removing from the watershed, fairly practical and at low cost. We have one pump station that feeds 100 homes. If the issue is flow to Halleck's Mill, we can take those 100 homes out fairly inexpensively, which would open up, some capacity at Halleck's Mill.
So let me ask you, since I've started the paper, the sewer thing hasn't really come up in any meaningful way. What, if you could just tell me, what the issues are with the sewer and why you're doing what you're doing?
The issues with the sewers has been an issue for, I would say, when I was first stint as town attorney, it was at that point we had a moratorium. The moratorium, so everybody understands, we have a district that with properties that goes into the Halleck's Mill or Greenwood, Yorktown Heights Sewer, whatever name you want to call it, Halleck's Mills, Yorktown Sewer, Greenwood Plant, they're all the same. The Department of Environmental Conservation put a moratorium on extensions to the districts to be able to hook in there. So you couldn't extend the district any further. So areas,
That was done in the late 80s?
that was done in probably late 80s. So that precluded hookups in places where there are sewers would be very easily put in, which is areas like by Sunrise, by Sparkle Lake and all those areas which aren't sewer. There's a whole bunch of areas.
And also on Gomer, isn't there homes on
Yeah,
Gomer?
yeah. So all these areas are really close to trunk lines.
Right.
But they can't get, we needed sewer extensions. Well, we couldn't do it, and the at the time that the DEC put a moratorium on extensions, the plant, which was certified to handle 1.5 million gallons per day, needed to be upgraded. So at the same time, so the Yorktown, the Hudson River Keeper brought a lawsuit against the town of Yorktown for violations of its speedies permit, which is this state pollution elimination discharge permit, basically. And it wasn't in terms of the nutrient loads that were coming out of the plant that were going into the Halleck's mill, but it was in terms of the flow. And my law firm represented the town in defense of the case, so we're very familiar with it. The water in the Halleck's mill downstream from the plant was cleaner than the water in the Halleck's mill upstream from the plant. The treatment of this water that was coming into the plant was actually at a higher quality than what was up in the stream north of it. So that, but the problem was that the flows were high. And then there was a big push to get ammonia and phosphorus out of that, and that was really what this city wanted to get out of the watershed, because that creates algae blooms. So those are the nutrients they want out of it. So what happened was, once the federal government came down on New York City to do filtration, then New York City's options would do filtration plants. This is where they were citing all the filtration plants. There was a lawsuit with the Marshall Golf Course. They were going to put it underneath the golf course, and there was a lawsuit about the alienation of
Marshall or Hansik?
No, Marshall down in the Bronx.
Oh, Marshall. Oh, okay.
And so anyhow, and it was, it was a huge. So what New York City has done in order to keep the federal government off its back was to now push back on the properties within its watershed to do certain things. Eventually, New York City, paid $40 million for an upgrade of the Halleck's Mill plant. So now that it can handle 2.5 million gallons per day in terms of treatment. But the surface discharge permit, the speedies permit from the DEC, limits the surface discharge to 1.5 million gallons per day.
So what do you do?
So the thing is, if you got DEC to lift the surface discharge limits, the plant certainly can handle it.
Yeah.
But because the surface discharge limits are set based upon when the plant was not upgraded, they haven't changed. And they haven't changed essentially because I think the motivation on it is that they just don't want development in the watershed.
Talking about the
DEP.
Okay.
And I also believe that the prior town boards who I had worked for embraced it because they didn't have to approve anything. It always became difficult for the town board to say no or to take accountability for saying no.
Right.
So instead of having to do that, they just said, well, I'd love to approve but you can't get sewers, so, and knowing that the only way the project could go ahead was with sewers, and you can't get sewers, so you can't do it. So I'm not saying no, it's the guy above me that says no, and there was never any pushback. So as a consequence, it's all been stalemated. Now we haven't had flow violations in the past year, which allows us to probably pull permits for the plant. So we're actually in the process of looking to pull permits to go into the plant. Now that's not an extension; that's only properties within the district.
What about the extension?
We talked to DEC, so the conversation went, well, look, we think we're eligible to pull permits, limited number, but we can pull permits. So now I've got DEP and DEC, and I said, look, the problem is you've got properties within the watershed that have failing septic systems that we would love to get. The property owners would love to get sewered. We'd love to have them sewered. We need an extension. The moratorium is with DEC, so we got to talk to DEC. We tell DEC. DEC says, yeah, well, that extension goes back 20 years. And it goes back to when the plant can only handle 1.5, now it's certified to 2.5 million gallons. And they're saying, well, it kind of makes sense to treat it than rather let it spill out untreated into the watershed. We said, right. Not only do you have that, but there's $10 million set aside for doing certain improvements within the district itself. And we tell them if the DEP's objection is the amount of flow, which it shouldn't be because it can be treated, we still have possibilities of taking things out to bring things in, which is just a swap. So if we come with a, as for instance, we have our pump stations all have to be rehabilitated. Mahansik pump station is on 202. Mahansik has got a 3/4 of a mile run to where the Costco would go, and Costco is going to is going to be an extension of the Peekskill district, which is going to have a pipe right at the other side of the Taconic. So if I can go up from a 3/4 of a mile with a force main, which is going to be, which is instead of bring the force main down the other side of 202, run west rather than east, I can take 100 homes out. Now 100 homes isn't a lot of flow. But if it allows me to go into properties that are in the watershed that have failed systems and pull in 100 homes and have them treated at the plant without any net increase in the flow to the plant, everybody wins.
So wait, you're not removing any homes, correct?
We're not. What we're really looking to do is, and it's just laying out what the issues are. It's just so everybody's clear. The issue isn't, there's a certain amount of vacant properties that could be developed that aren't developed if you had sewers. The numbers are very low. I think we tallied really the possibility of maybe 6 commercial lots in the Heights area, but the 6 commercial lots would be lots that are just sitting, not being able to do anything. And we told them, look, if you allow these commercial lots to be developed, the problem is restaurants. I said, well, the bottom line with the restaurant is, based upon our zoning code, you couldn't provide the parking for restaurants because our parking requirements for restaurants are so onerous that these lots aren't going to support restaurants. So they're mostly going to be either some type of retail or office use. Retail or office use has what we call water closets in it. A 20,000, 30,000 office building probably produces less discharge than a single-family home because no washer and dryer, no showers, no car washing, so the whole thing's, so it's just what you call water closets, it's just toilets.
Right.
So, nothing else much, unless you have some industry that's high water usage, like a restaurant, it's very low, it's extremely low. So, but what will happen is, so I get a high rateable within a district, which helps pay for the costs of operating and maintaining the district. I get a high rateable in a district with very little. It's like having a business in a school district. Business is not going to produce children, but it's going to produce revenue for the school district. So you get positive revenue with no expense. It becomes the same thing with the business in the sewer district.
So what has actually happened? I mean, I know you said you got a bunch of towns together to talk with the environmental. So is there a study being done, or is there what's happening?
The first thing that we did is the last time this thing was rung up the flagpole, so to speak. The cry from Peekskill was this was environmental racism.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was white people's effluent going into black neighborhood or something like that, and being treated in a black neighborhood, which I really take offense to.
Now, when was that?
That was probably 10 years ago, maybe 10, 15 years ago. Yeah. And the idea was that, people of color had to smell what white people delivered to them. I mean, that essentially was the argument. Yeah. And it caught traction. But it only caught traction because I believe that as far as the town of Yorktown was concerned, again, it just was a way of saying no to anything. And if you go back 10 years, the whole thing, the major issues were traffic, and development. We didn't want we didn't want traffic, we don't want development, we didn't want anything, but we couldn't say no because, if a person owns a piece of property and they come in with a plan that comports with the regulations as to being developable, you're hard pressed to say no. You really can't say no without being sued, as having an indirect taking of the property for which you're monetarily liable as a municipality. So the only way what you had left, the tool that you had left for you to say no, was you have to be sued. And to be sewered, you would have to do that, and you know what, we can't do that.
So the issues are the same now as they were 10 years ago.
No.
No?
Then that's the difference. The issues now are, everybody understands that, that the real estate tax burden for almost anybody, I mean, people making, you know, I have my peers and people that I've known in this town for decades are all, you know, come time to pay that tax bill, it just becomes an incredible burden. You're going to get an emigration of people out of the area because you just can't do it anymore. And what everybody finally understands is that you got to have some, you know, the more important issue at this point is just sharing or reducing the tax burden on residential properties, because it just becomes unaffordable to live here. People will have their kids, so they'll educate them here, and they'll move out. And the kids that are growing up in this town, have grown up in this town, are looking elsewhere to grow up, by, because it just becomes absolutely impossible. So what finally is dawning is that you really need to, in order to provide long-term stability to to your local municipality, your town, your region, your county, is that you need to keep, you need to keep some investment and reinvestment, and it doesn't mean creating all new development out of whole cloth, but it means just allowing what's there to be properly and smartly developed or redeveloped. So now it's you know, if you were around when Floyd Braun was on the town board, the big discussion at that point was creating a tunnel up on Route 6 in Mohegan for the traffic. I mean, that was, you know, let's create a tunnel, because that was, and nobody wanted anything. Nobody, you couldn't. No matter what your project was, they didn't want you to bring a 2x4 in, because a 2x4 meant traffic, meant this. That was it. They just wanted to say no. The political atmosphere has changed. The idea of environmental racism is...
That means it's changed here and in the surrounding areas.
It's changed everywhere, because the idea of environmental racism it should have been offensive the first time it was echoed, because the bottom line is that the water in the Croton watershed basically feeds the Bronx. So, you know, nobody has a problem with dumping sewage into the watershed. You know, that it may end up in people's drinking water, but nobody cares about that. You know, I mean, it's just really bizarre. But it caught traction because I believe that the powers to be, even in this town, found it a convenient way to push their own agenda, which was they didn't want anything anyhow. So what happened is now you have and nobody bothers to bring it up, because everybody says, well, you're going to bring it up, you're just going to get no, because the answer was no. Even when I came into office, I would sit down with the powers to be in the county, and they said, you're really going to go there? We went down this route before. I said, yeah, I'm really going to go there, because you guys aren't looking at it for what the real issue is. And the real issue is, you got to be kidding me. You've got failed septic systems in the watershed that are easily can be hooked up into a plant that is now certified to treat 1 million gallons a day more than it's actually getting. But you would rather have failed septic systems in the watershed than to do the right thing, which would be to allow these things to get in there. And on top of it, we've got a town that, you know, I mean, there were periods, and they can be repeated, where this town was an economic plight. You had the Yorktown Green Shopping Center, which was completely empty for the most part. It was, you know, Oster Realty redid it over. The Yorktown Green, you had, and the Triangle Shopping Center were completely and utterly vacant for years, for a good decade. I mean, you know, and there was nothing in the town. You can easily, you know, what tips it from one direction to the other, it doesn't take a lot. But if you build the momentum in the other way, you start to get something that really becomes, you know, you can bring back the vibrancy and the commercial tax base in the town very easily. So all these things go hand in hand. The garbage, you know, the highway garage, you know, I mean, we're going to unveil it, but just imagine what downtown Yorktown would look like with a linear park that connects Railroad Park to Railroad Park. I mean, to the Patriot Park, which is a forgotten area back there. And we've got monuments to people that have sacrificed their lives for our freedom,
right,
and memorialized at Patriot Park. Nobody even knows it's there.
That's true. That's very
It's
true. Right.
to sit there and create a park to memorialize these people's sacrifices, and then to stick it in some corner where nobody goes to me is it defeats the purpose for what you're doing it for in the first place. You can create a linear park that would bring in Patriot Park into the town, and
It would give a downtown feel.
right, you would now create some kind of and we've got a lot of interest in people looking. The highway garage property is about 1.5 acres. You could probably annex some of the property towards Richard Place as well. You may have about 2 acres. You can, because you have a large commuter lot which could be redeveloped or maybe expanded to accommodate. You don't have to put a lot of parking on the 1.5 acres.
Right.
So it can be mostly park and building, and you could really do something that would be absolutely beautiful.
And it would be walkable, like you talked
Right,
about.
and now you're drawing this part of town. Yorktown. Everybody talks about Yorktown being 2 towns: the north end of town, south end of town. Actually, Yorktown Heights is 2 downtowns. There's everything on Commerce Street and everything over here.
Yeah.
And everything over here is what I got woodpile.
Right.
I woodpile. I got a commuter lot that looks like garbage. Because I park all our vans in there, which are all rusting. I mean, and bins, and it just looks like hell. And I got a highway garage, which is just all due respect. I mean, they do a great job trying to maintain that place, but it's
a garage.
no matter how much lace you put on a bowling ball, it's still a bowling ball at the end of the day. So you're never going to make it. So
What about, and I don't know how much time we have left, the Holland Sporting Club.
Yeah, because I'm going to tell you, this is. I'm glad you brought it up because this is typical. I sat, last night I said, we've got an opportunity because of the work that's going down on 202 to get fill.
Yeah.
I got a piece of property that for 25 years has been sitting there doing nothing. Mm-hmm. We took down the buildings. We bought the property at great expense to the town taxpayers. We cleaned it up. Albeit a little bit cheaper than we originally thought because
But
highway.
you're saying it is clean after all of that.
It's still,
stuff.
but it's still. If you go up there and you visit the site, it has been an unmaintained site for 20 some odd years. There's a lot of underbrush. There's a lot of crap lumber. There's a lot of European vine. There's still the remnants of the old structures that are still up there in terms of foundations. There's other structures that were up there such as benches and others. So it's a site that needs to be cleaned up. And it's not, everybody says, when's the last wilderness sites on Mohegan Lake? It's not a wilderness site. Take a walk through the property. It needs an enormous amount of landscaping work. It just does. It's an enormous amount. And right now, like other pieces of property the town bought, it's behind a chain. It's behind a lock and chain.
Yeah.
Tall Timbers behind a lock and chain. Shallow Creek behind a lock and chain. Granite Knolls behind a lock and chain. They're all, you buy these properties.
I think your idea is to open it up, obviously, and ball fields.
Well, this is what you see. That this is where and it's really funny because we just had to talk about the YACs and the fields.
It might help with the user fees.
Right. But the minute,
that's the
So
thing.
now you mentioned ball fields up at Mohegan Lake, and everybody gets the hair up on their back because they don't want ball fields.
Is that passive recreation?
You know what? The bottom line is that if it evolves, it could be, it would absolutely, in my mind, it'd be a beautiful place to see a ball game. In the sense,
Well, especially the lower field if you're talking about that lake view, right?
You could sit up, you could watch a game
that's right. That
go
would
on
be
and
really
watch the
cool.
whole.
It'd
and
be
have
like, almost like the Giants they play at the Cove.
Right, exactly,
That'd be cool.
right, yeah.
San Francisco Giants, but
Yeah, I grew up on Staten Island. You ever go to Staten Island, the Yankees, Staten Island Yankees? They're right on the harbor, right next to the ferry boat. You sit there and watch a game while you see the New York skyline in the background.
Right.
The thing is,
neighbors, I'm sure you've heard it more than I have today. Already, people saying, "Well, they're going to cut down trees." Is it because I guess the site is supposed to be for passive recreation? Is it passive? Is putting ball fields? Is that passive recreation?
I don't know. You see,
Traffic concerns that you have 2 games going on at once, or a tournament. Well, God knows what you have up there, and with athletic events, and you have all these cars and that road there. You know?
Well, you know what, I mean, but take a look at every park that the town owns where there's active recreation goes, and look at the accesses to it. Look, Turkey Mountain's passive, but look at the access to Turkey Mountain. Look at Shrub Oak Park in the pool. Look at the Sunrise, you know, it's a small road with speed bumps on it.
That's right.
Okay, and that's a good point, because most parks are, you know, you
they're
don't
all
speed into the park.
Yeah, parks are located in
So is
residential neighborhoods.
of
The one parks that we don't have that located in a residential neighborhood are the 202 fields.
Right.
And you know what? Quite frankly, 202's tough access, but
Yeah.
you know.
So, is passive recreation an official designation? Number one, and number two, if not, would you try to go about changing it? And how? I mean, because I can already see that being an
It's
issue.
not,
Big issue.
I was town attorney when we went ahead to buy this property. And when I was town attorney back in those days, I lived on Mohegan Lake. I lived at Ansonia Lodge. You know, I eventually bought in Mohegan Colony. So Mohegan Lake is very near and dear to my heart. You know, I think it's an overlooked jewel, you know, and resource in the town of Yorktown, which is just spectacular. Town for years and years, we used to collect dock lots just to get access to the little dock lots, and they would take them if people wouldn't pay taxes on them. That's all the town ever had on Mohegan Lake. The opportunity came to buy Holland Sporting Club, and we did a very creative, very innovative purchasing agreement to obtain Holland Sporting Club at very little of its actual market value, at a fraction of its market value. It sat in, you know, David Wright, the lawyer, was instrumental in it, and myself. We designed the purchase of this. The idea was that the town at that point wanted to get a presence on Mohegan Lake, wanted to have have an area where people could access and recreate on Mohegan Lake. Dock lots didn't do it. This did, and the idea was that what was the ultimate plan of it? Nobody knew until what happened is the life estates of the people that we bought it for expired, essentially when they died. So now that's happened. Now the buildings I think were at one point salvageable. I think they were salvageable when we even took them down. But the bottom line is they went on too long, and you know what? They're down.
Have you guys spoken? I know, I think this process is at the beginning now, but there's a lot of concerned neighbors. Have you? I think you're trying to reach out to them and discuss this.
We're trying to reach.
You have to talk to Cortland at all, because I don't know if is it all in Yorktown?
It's all in Yorktown, and we're going to do the reach out. There's a lot of hyperbole, you know, already starting, which is just, you know, before anybody's heard anything. The Parks and Rec Commission's meeting next Thursday. I already got a prior commitment. I would have gone. I can't, which I'm not. I can't cancel, so I won't be there on Thursday. So I'm going to write the Parks and Rec Commission a letter, encouraging them to take a serious and expedited look at this, because the idea is that we have from beginning in April probably through August, we've got somebody that will deliver the bill.
The state will. And my question, if I'm not mistaken, my question is, why will the state do that?
Because they have to get rid of the fill on 202, so they got to truck it out.
Is that a close, cheap, easy way for them to get rid of it?
Well, if you can find a local spot to get rid of it. If they can, you know, this is a site 3 miles away.
So they approached you guys, and you didn't approach them?
The efficiency of getting rid of it within 3 miles of where it's the host site. You know, is just creates such efficiencies of scale for them, that, especially for the amount of fill that you're talking about, that they're looking to get rid of it locally. The cost that the savings to them will allow them to do services for us that they otherwise wouldn't be available. So they're not just going to dump it; they'll push it and roll it.
Yeah.
So they'll actually, if we give them topos, they'll follow the topos, and they'll create the fields for us. Does it mean taking down trees? Yes. Obviously, if you're going to create a field, you got to take down trees.
You know how many trees were cleared at Legacy Fields? Remember, it was huge amounts.
Yeah, but if you go up there and take a look at what's up there, there are some specimen trees which we would strive to preserve. The other stuff is undergrowth.
Right.
It's invasive species. It's European vine. It's got, and then the thing is, you know, to say it's passive recreation. Well, the bottom line is go up there and try to walk around up there. It's really not. It's not conducive to even hiking it. Well, first of all, it's not much of a hiking area. But the bottom line is a lot of dead wood, a lot of hanging wood, a lot of stuff that's about to come down. We had a transformer which we had to take out of there that was hanging on by a thread on a pole that was snapped. It's a disturbed site which needs to be reclaimed, and this is, I don't mind if the idea is to have it passive recreation. You have it a field where you can access the lake, and you have an open area where you can go up there and relax and sunbathe and do whatever it is. That's fine by me. If it evolves to that, look, you have a big ball, it's like, Central, the fields at Central Park or something like that. I mean, if somebody, if you run and throw a Frisbee or get a pick-up softball game, so much the better.
Right, exactly.
So your vision is to have, like, where the buildings are now, that there would be a field there, and there would be another field?
No, actually,
or not even there
where the buildings are, I think those areas are a little bit more difficult. They're high up, it's a lot of ledge.
So I mean, I've been to the site,
Yeah.
but there's obviously a vast expanse of the site that I've never been on, correct?
If you come up you come up to where the buildings were. They were bungalows or smaller buildings
All the way down.
onto the east side, and that's a much more gentle slope. And then there's another drop down contour, and then there's an area down by the lake. The area down by the lake would be a perfect area. It's not pristine forest. It's not great forest. It's not, there's nothing, and there's no wetlands. No wetlands at all on the site. It's all good land. And the irony in this thing is that if the town didn't act to buy it 20, 25 years ago, that was going out on the market. And
So there'd be something else
you
there.
would have had condos.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly what was planned to go there, because you had the condos across the street, across the lake. This was also being planned. So the owners of the Holland Sporting Club approached the town to buy it because they had to sell it because they were financial reasons. We worked out a deal where they could stay on it, and that we could buy it over time. Basically the way the town bought it was for every dollar in tax arrears and tax penalty arrears that the Holland Club incurred, we'd get $2 of equity in the property. So if they would back $10,000 on the taxes and a $10,000 penalty, we had a $20,000. That became $20,000 and became $40,000 of equity towards the property.
Right.
And they were able to stay there until they finally, so every dollar and the idea was to do something to create a town park. It's not, all due respect to the people up in the neighborhood, it wasn't bought with Mohegan Lake residents' money.
Thank you.
It was bought with everybody
in the
town's money.
And that's what I wanted to just add, that, it's very logical and inevitable that people living within proximity of a space like that,
As any of us would.
are going to be vocal, but that doesn't change the fact that what they say has no more weight than anybody else in town. It belongs to everybody, not just the people in that neighborhood.
So do you think?
I mean, I go to games at Shrub Oak Park.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm down here at this end of town. I mean, I'm not,
With the state starting there, I think you said in April they're going to start
Yeah.
the 202 project, and the fill, I guess, will be available by August or because I was going to say, how long will it take you to approve whatever's going to be there, so you know what to do with that fill?
We would be. I think we don't need. It's only local permits. If we get this thing going, we could be done probably by next year. You could have a park up there, and not only a park, but I mean, you would have such a jewel. I mean, the bottom line, it would be absolutely. I mean, the views up on there are beautiful. You can't see anything in the summer because it's all overgrown. So you'd have, and then if you wanted to go recreate to the lake, which is what the property is there for, because it's lakefront property, you have to recreate for the lake. You can't get, just to get down to the lake, is you're bushwhacking.
Right.
Yeah.
And so and there's asphalt paths up there. There's asphalt drives up there which should be taken out. There's all sorts of stuff that should be taken out and should be removed, and there's stuff that should be. So we've got the opportunity for fill, but not only fill, but it's clean fill, because everything that comes out of that site's got to have a manifest on it from DOT, so we know what we're getting.
So does
And
the
it's all
town
for nothing.
Does the town board have to vote on this? How does this happen?
It would be the town board would approve a project up there, and it's we defer a lot to the Parks and Recs on it, but
So that's going to be a big story in the coming months.
it's the next couple of weeks. The idea, and the shrill hyperbole coming out of that area. I talked to somebody last night. I said, you talk to your lake community. I think the guy turned ashen on me when I mentioned it, and it's like, oh my God, and I was like, well, what do you mean, oh my God? you know, Mohegan Lake is absolutely, you can talk about Sparkle Lake, you can talk about all the, these other small lakes in town. Nothing is quite as beautiful as Mohegan Lake. Mohegan Lake people are always coming to the town, trying to get the town to do something to improve the water quality in Mohegan Lake. They want us to make the investment in Mohegan Lake. And I said, well,
That's what we're doing. Yeah.
This is the perfect opportunity. It makes us a partner with the residents up there.
Right.
We have a stake in it. We'll have a stake in the water quality of it. We'll have a real investment in it. But
So you'll try to have more, because I mean, I can see if I live there, I've lived there for years, and my kids are now off and they're not at home anymore. And finally they're gonna do something with the Holland Sporting Club property. This is great. Wait a second, they're putting ball fields. My kids don't play anymore. I don't really.
Who are you talking about? The people
in the neighborhood.
And to your point earlier, that it's not they don't own that,
Right.
and I get that, but I'm
Exactly.
just trying to give because they're so you will try. Do you think to have other stuff on a place where you could, like you said, just picnic or lay out and
Yeah, it does. If the objection is if you don't want a ball game to go on, an organized ball game to go on the property, if that's the objection, well, I mean, to me that's
There's not going to be games going on 24/7.
no, and that's what the bottom line to me is. I'll approach that when the time comes. I don't know. I've a little.
You can know what hurt the property values up there. Some of those lake houses are.
You know what? The property value. If you do this thing right, the value of the properties up there are going to soar, because you're going to have within walking distance a park
Right.
that's going to rival just about any park anywhere.
Right.
Period. I mean, you're going to be you would be very hard pressed to look in any community in anywhere.
There's no waterfront fields.
Right. Go.
Yeah, no, you're
That's
right.
that's pretty awesome.
unique.
Yeah.
Try to find
if that were to
right,
happen.
Try to find a community anywhere. If you can come up with half a dozen, it's going to
that's
take an
right.
awful lot, that would have a facility that would have the amenities that a facility up there would have. You're not going to find it.
Right.
And so now, will there be some traffic? Yeah, there'll be some traffic. But the bottom line is you've got to understand it's town property. It wasn't bought to be mothballed.
Yeah.
Right.
And the notion that that's what the obligation of the town is got to be dispelled, because no more than Turkey Mountain is mothballed,
Right.
no more than Shrub Oak Park is mothballed, no more than Downing Park's mothballed, no more than Shallow Creek shouldn't be mothballed. These things,
Right.
we have mothballed sites. We got tall timbers up there is mothballed. It's behind a fence. It was parkland that's put now behind a chain link fence. And
So we're in an election year.
Yeah.
And you're still. I mean, this is big stuff you're talking about.
Yeah.
So you're confident that going into an election year, I mean, I assume that
the
that
thing
you're not like.
Some
Some people should get conservative, and not in the political way, but when they're
No, not him.
when they're
Not
in
the
a
supervisor.
when they're in an election
Right.
year, they don't want to ruffle any feathers. Because
Exactly.
as Andy Bozzo said, you haven't pissed off enough people to lose yet. He doesn't think.
Well,
But if you keep doing this
I
stuff,
still-
as you said, you get more enemies.
Use slightly milder
Well,
language.
but
okay, yeah.
but that's so, and that goes back to exactly where we started.
Right.
Yeah.
When
we do have to wrap it up,
Right.
but
When
yeah.
we started this conversation, you talk about the sewers, you talk about economic, moving this town ahead. It is real easy just to do nothing.
Yep.
And that, if it is a choice of the electorate that they really want the town to do nothing, and that's what they prefer,
So be it. Right.
so be it.
Might see some do nothing buttons.
They had. I'm going to tell you, the prior administration did nothing. Just annoyed the hell out of everybody. Did nothing. Threw stones at everything. Criticized everybody. The woman still continues to do it. Nothing constructive. Nothing pushing anything forward. Not building coalitions. Not looking at presenting. Do nothing. And you can, they can really easily have it back. I think it's, I think if that's the way you want to go, then, obviously the electorate has their choice. To me, this is an opportunity to create an improvement on a piece of property at almost nominal cost to the town that at the end of the day, you're going to have something that's going to be the envy of any community anywhere, and especially that community up there. I mean, there's a community up there to have. I can just imagine if I'm on Horton or Crawford or one of those places, the whole idea is I'm up in the lake community. That's where I wanted to be. That's why I bought the property, and I said, I take a 5-minute walk, and I can go down to this nice open, beautiful park with a big open field, to the lake. You may be able to put a boat in there. You may be able to put a dock in there. You may be, so the thing is, to not really take a serious look at this and consider it would be remiss. And to the degree that it's now surrounded by the sky falling hyperbole is unfortunate, but I guess anytime you do anything that's, somewhat creative,
right,
that's where you
And
end
by
up.
the way, the irony is that the development where I live, Pine Tree is 20 years old this year. In 1993, it was settled, let's say. And Pine Tree, along with Chelsea, is another example. That they happen to be the same developer, but that's beside the fact. It was mandated by the town that ball fields had to be put in at the developer's expense, or I believe, or they had to make a donation to the land trust.
Right.
But as somebody moving in, I think my neighbors would agree, and Chelsea people would agree, that just adds
Pretty
great
positive
appeal to the
connotation.
fact that you want to live there.
Yeah, but the
And
Harrison
it was
Apar
Pine Tree Field.
right?
Now it's named for my son.
Yeah,
Yeah, right. And that's secluded.
And what's the access to that?
Yeah, very narrow road. It
Right,
never
right.
doesn't bother anybody.
Right, and the thing is, and when you have ball games. My son used to practice football there.
Yeah, and
in the
you-
middle of the night, you had a light up. In football season, you had a stanchion light.
And in fact, the plaque there, I mean, it's no coincidence, the plaque there that explains why it's named for Harrison, Apar, our son, it talks about, the beauty of hearing the sound of kids playing and the crack of a bat. I mean, that's just stuff you can't replace.
Right,
So-
and the thing is, I think it's again, you have to, I'm a big proponent of taking a look at this very seriously and maybe moving forward on it because and what will happen and what can happen is that I guess if you get enough of a headwind and enough of naysayers, then the opportunity will pass, and all you got to do is delay it for a couple of weeks, or a month or two, and they've successfully killed it. And then, for now, you'll be stuck with another 20 years. You'll be looking at 2 pillars with a chain, which will now be a rusted chain and 2 locks. But that would be unfortunate. It really would. So I mean, hopefully, rational heads
Will prevail.
will prevail.
Anyhow, on that note, Bryan Fumagalli, editor of Yorktown News, thanks
Yeah,
as always
appreciate
for being
you
with us,
coming.
Bryan.
It's
Yeah, you
always
make a
good.
great guest.
Yeah, you do. It's
Yeah.
good. I mean,
Yeah.
you're part of the.
It's my job.
Yep, you do it well.
Meet the press Yorktown style. And thank you for watching Grace Notes with Town of Yorktown Supervisor Michael Grace. I'm Bruce Apar of Chase Media Group. Please watch us next time and every time because Yorktown is your town. Thank you.